Hey, Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the information that you sent me, kind of your official bio, and then I'm going to ask if there's anything else you want to share about yourself before we get into the meat and potatoes of this retirement and first responder podcast. So,
Sounds good.
per your bio, you grew up in the New Orleans area and you graduated from college in 1988. You were hired August 15th, 1988 by DPD with patrol assignments at Southwest, Central, Northeast before promoting to sergeant with assignments at Southeast, Central, Neighborhood Nuisance Abatement Unit, Auto Theft Unit, and Property Crimes. You retired December 31st, 2016, and went to work as a security manager for a large third-party logistics company on January 2nd, 2017. You're a proud father of two married children. You have Chase, a Nebraska state trooper, and Kylie. Did I pronounce that right?
Uh-huh.
Kylie, love that name, an event coordinator, and one brand new granddaughter, Morgan. You're once divorced, once widowed, and you're currently living your absolute best life with your new wife outside of Tucson, Arizona. And you have hobbies of golf, hiking, and travel. And wow, what a full life. What a full life. And is there anything else you want us to know about you before we get farther into this?
Um, not really. I think I'm living my best life now, and that's completely different from when I was working in law enforcement. It was provide for the family. It was, do what's best for the job and all that. And I think once I got to semi-retirement, that I realized that there were a whole lot more things that were important, and taking care of yourself was number one on that list. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Okay. And I was trying to remember earlier when I met you, and I think it's going to be at Southwest.
I believe so, yeah, because I trained at Southwest in '89, was there through 91, and then went to Central. So I think you probably were coming out to Southwest at about that time.
That's when I came. I don't remember whose position I took down there, but I did a swap and came down there and loved Southwest. Best place ever to work.
Yep.
So you've left law enforcement, living your best life right now. What prompted you to consider retiring from the Dallas Police Department after a very good career, a very successful career?
Yes, I was proud of the career that I had at DPD. Made lifelong friends,
Mhm.
lifelong associations. Some of the closest people that I have in my life, or I still communicate with, are from Dallas PD. And matter of fact, I'll be traveling to Dallas next week for a conference, and I'm going to meet some of them for dinner one day. But what prompted me to seek retirement or to consider it started with the July 7th shootings.
Yeah.
It was it shook me to my core. It caused a whole lot of feelings of anxiety and fear and not knowing what was going to happen next. And I felt like I had, given everything of myself that I could have to the department. And the whole ambush, it just caused, I can't even really put it into words to how I feel, because I wasn't even there that night, and I felt a sense of I should have been there, or I should have done more, and I was in no position to be able to do anything other than show up to work the next day, uh, to just kind of be there. And so that prompted me to start looking, or to start considering retirement. And when I had worked in auto theft, I had made several connections in the logistics industry, and I kind of called them up and put my name out there and said, "Hey, I might be I might, if somebody's looking, give me a call." And somebody called on December the 15th and said there's this position being created. And so I had 2 interviews and I put my papers in 2 days later to retire.
Wow.
But it also the other thing and a big contributing factor too was the pension crisis. And it was a very uncertain time, wasn't certain what those retirement and drop benefits were going to look like. So I felt it was a good time while I still had good working years left to seek other employment and to supplement those the pension and the drop and the other investments. So that came along at the right time. Like I was retired for 3 days, December 31st, and then went to work on January 2nd, and have not looked back. So it's been an amazing job. The people are great. The work is satisfying, and it's very rewarding for me.
You hit a couple of topics in that, and the first one that none of us can ever forget or give enough credit to or explain in words that actually accurately expresses the damage to our souls and our hearts and our minds on July 7th. And, it affected our family deeply. My husband was in the building during all of that, in SWAT. And I was outside waiting for an assignment, not knowing if my husband was okay. It was horrific. And all of us, it's like everybody has this different level of guilt or shame. And in all honesty, there isn't anything any of us could have done.
Right.
And when you tell me, well, I wasn't there, and I'm like, but we know that when you showed up the next day, you did the best job you could do
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
people that needed you. But it doesn't matter when it's us. It still is just a deep wound
Yeah.
that we carry, and we have to find a way to successfully live our life with that.
Yeah. And just as a little aside to that, and I remember one time because I was really thrown for a loop, and I even went and sought counseling through the ATO program, and I remember sitting in the waiting room, and coming out was a friend of mine from SWAT who was coming out of the thing, and I'm like, who was actually there and actively participated in the resolution of the incident. And I was sitting here, and I sat there and was thinking to myself, it's like, what the hell am I doing here? I was at home, wasn't able to do anything, and so that just added an extra layer of guilt to the way I was feeling, but I was able to resolve it, and it is what it is.
Well, I am so thankful that you reached out and that there was somebody there to help you.
Oh yeah,
And
no, they I
yeah.
can't give enough kudos to the ATO and that program with the counseling. And I think if anybody gets anything out of this, it's if you need to go see somebody, utilize ATO or whatever your organization has, because you can't do it by yourself.
No. And we have a saying that you're going to deal with it one way or the other.
Exactly.
One way or the
Exactly.
other, you're going to deal with it. So,
Exactly.
yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's actually just one of the many difficult topics we're going to talk about today. I also wanted to hit on, the pension and our drop deal here in Dallas. One of my rules, just how I'm wired, is I don't get deep in the weeds of politics and blame and he did this and he did that and she didn't do this or whatever. But I can tell you that when I was in that room and it was my turn to go up and sign on the dotted line to come out of our drop program, and then to agree to have all of that money paid back out of my savings, I was not a happy camper.
Yeah.
I was not a happy camper. And I decided then and there, I'm done. When I hit my date, I'm done. And I was very comfortable with that. And I didn't leave mad. I didn't leave angry, but I wasn't here. It changed something in me. For so many years, when all the bad stuff would happen, I would say, it's okay. I'm making all the money. I'm going to leave the money to my kids. Todd and I are going to live a good life. We're going to have the money. And I remember the night that Norm was murdered, as I'm driving into town, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to be here, but I'm going to do it for the money and it's going to work. I'm going to do it
Hmm.
for the money. I'm going to serve my people and take care of my family. So when that was ripped from under my feet, I'm like, later. And I did. I did my 30 to get, my full
Hmm.
90%, and I was done.
Hmm.
And it wasn't a negative thing for me. It was a negative incident that I turned into a positive for me, because when I went into retirement, I went into retirement positive and excited and with things to do and a plan for a good life. So I think I took a negative, I can never, I can't control the conflict, but I control how I handle it, how I address it.
Exactly.
So, and then the next quick thing is that I think you hit the nail on the head that we hear all the time. And that is, it's easier to get your next job while you're still employed. And if you
Yes.
want, yeah, if you want to do something law enforcement related and what you're currently doing, get all the training you can get now. And listen, our law enforcement individuals, your entity, your agency, your department will be better for you being better trained. The community will benefit, your coworkers
Hmm.
will benefit. Well, and you get to benefit from it too. You get to take that into your next life. There's nothing wrong with us actually benefiting from something every now and then in our career. So,
No, and actually, my leaving the department and moving on to this next job has actually granted me the opportunity to pass that on to people that I worked with before, at DPD. Several people that worked for me in auto theft have retired and moved on into the logistics industry, and that just warms my heart. And because you know they took care of me when we were all working as a team. I'm a firm believer, as a supervisor, you're only as good as the team members
yeah,
and how they act together.
yeah,
And if you can't get them to act together, then you need to check your leadership abilities.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it,
definitely.
it makes me feel really good to see that I've been able to have some impact on those lives and careers.
Well, really, a leader is a leader is a leader is a leader. And when you're a leader and when you're a good leader, you tend to continue doing that no matter the situation, because you recognize when you can serve other people. You recognize when you've stuck your neck out, and then you can bring the next person with you, or you've kind of stopped the traffic for them to leap out. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that for our previous coworkers. So, with your permission, I would like to segue into a very triggering topic for many. And it's something that you did want to share.
Yes.
This was something that you wanted to share. And it's very difficult, but it is of paramount importance to first responders and retirement. And that is suicide.
Yep.
Suicide of us, the first responder, suicide of our spouses during retirement. While we work, as we're working law enforcement, first responders, it is unfortunately our children that often commit suicide, kill themselves, take their own lives. And then when we retire, across the board, as a retirement life coach, I'm very well aware that suicide is very high in all populations in retirement, but it is higher in our population, along with the alcoholism and the divorce and the legal and illegal drug abuse. Everything that happens to the regular American population just happens to us in higher numbers. So you lost your wife, Michelle, a couple of years after your retirement, and you've said that that has led to a different life for you.
It has. So when I retired from the police department, with being able to draw the pension and the second paycheck, um, I was able to let her to not let her, but I was able to tell her, hey, you can quit your teaching job now because it was taking a heavy toll on her body, and and we can we can do things. So she retired from Garland ISD, and was, you know, I was working, traveling, and she ended up having a severe anxiety and depression episode that required hospitalization. So lots of counseling, lots of psychiatric treatments, some, you know, medication. Things were seemed to have gotten under control, and um, we thought a change of scenery might be in order, and we found this place where I live in Arizona now, and it's a retirement community. It's an active adult, um, you know, pickleball, everything, arts and crafts. So it was absolutely something that we both were excited about, and we got to design our own house that we wanted, and, you know, just all those things. It was something to to strive for. And once we got here, things were fine. But then the anxiety and the depression started creeping back in. And um, so we, on one of the trips to the psychiatrist office, they had a suicide prevention sign in the waiting room. And this was about 2 weeks before the actual incident. And I looked at her directly and I asked her, I said, would you ever think of doing anything like that? You know, like committing suicide? And she goes, no, I would never do that. Okay, so fast forward to 2 weeks later, and yeah, she did it. I was on a conference call on the patio uh, for work, and I heard the gunshot. And after after all my years in law enforcement, I didn't recognize it as a gunshot, and I was 30 feet away through a couple of walls. And um, so that's what happened with that. But throughout all of that, and some serious counseling after that, that was March 23rd of 2020, right after the COVID pandemic started, and that had a lot to do with it too. I'm pretty sure. Um, but after a lot of counseling and just a lot of, you know, self-reflection, and you know, the first thing anybody feels, I think, when a loved one, a friend, commits suicide is, I should have done something more. I could have done, if I would have only done this, this wouldn't be the reaction. And that's not the truth. I mean, I don't believe that's, you can only do, I mean, I did everything within my power to help her move along. And it just wasn't enough. I mean, there was in the end, that I realized that there was nothing that I could have done that would have changed the outcome of the situation. Um, so the other thing that made that through the counseling, and there was plenty of anger, and I felt abandoned and uh, uh, swept to the side for whatever. It's like, hey, we built this beautiful house, and you're just gonna up and leave, in the most uh, final sense of that word. And you know, I remember a couple of months after her death, that I was like, you know what, there's no way that I'm going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. I did as best that I could, and I'm okay with knowing that, you know, there was nothing that I could have done that would have changed the situation. So I resolved to myself, you know, you have lived your life for other people, for your kids, for spouses, for whoever, even the police department to some extent, for your entire life up to this point. And I made a resolution at that point to myself. It's like, all right, it's time for you to do things to live your life to make yourself happy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at, and it's actually been amazingly freeing emotionally to be able to do that. I met my current wife here. We got married in August of last year, and we've been together for a couple of years now. But when we first started dating, I told her, I said, listen, I've tried. I've been married twice, and I've tried things. I haven't been honest for fear of hurting someone's feelings in the past, and that hasn't worked out. I've I've been honest, and then the other person took that as I was leaving them, and those were not the cases. So the biggest thing that we've come across in our relationship is just being absolutely honest about everything, and not letting it get to the point of resentment. It's like if something's bugging me, it's like, hey, Mel, this is this happened and it's bugging me, and this is I'm feeling a little different about this. So can we talk? And quite honestly, both of my previous marriages before, if I would have had this attitude, it would have been a much different outcome for both of them, I think, in the long run. But I think we have to go through those journeys and those twists and turns to get to where you are now. So I believe that life is a journey, and you have no idea what the next turn is going to take you to. And but everything that's happened to my life up until this point has led me to where I'm at now, and I can absolutely tell you I am living my best life and absolutely happy, and just not with only myself, my relationship, everything about my life is better than I could ever imagined it at this point.
I think hearing that could give people a lot of comfort and a lot of hope. There's going to be some people who hear it and think probably the way that I used to think, and probably the way you used to think of, well, it's never going to get better. I don't even deserve better. I have a very realistic view of life. I know it sucks. I can be as happy and positive as I want to, but somebody in Oak Cliff is going to die tonight. I'm going to get a call and there's going to be a dead 14-year-old. I mean, we can just go on and on and on with that, or we don't help the complainant the way that we know the system should be able to help them,
Right.
and or or we can take every day as the gift that it is.
Yes.
And even with the pain, shame, embarrassment, anger, whatever it is, and just try to give the power to what's going to serve the day.
Yes.
And the topic of suicide scares me to death. Scares
Yes.
me to death. It is a topic in our household. Todd and I are part of the Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation, where we've gone through the couples communication class, and I'm part of the spouses group and stuff. And it's terrifying. It is a real thing. It is a real part of happy, solid marriages. And like you said, obviously you don't want to contribute or you don't want to do anything that is unhealthy, but sometimes there's not anything that we can do.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's, the sense of to be able to realize what parts of life that you have control over and what you don't have control over. That's a huge step. And if you can make that successful transition to learn to realize that, there was no way I could control any of the things that occurred, and the things that I could control, I did.
Mhm.
But it was out of my hands. And that's a hard thing, and realizing that you don't have to control everything is
That's
pretty.
hard.
It's
That's
hard.
hard.
It's hard, and but it's also emotionally freeing.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I can control certain things in certain aspects of my life, and I have those things the way I like it. I like to do certain things on certain days, and we have a schedule, and those are the things that we control. But if that doesn't happen that day, it's okay. We can pivot and be flexible. Um, so I think that is definitely something that for me was a relief in realizing, you don't need to control everything, and not only do you not need to, you can't. So that's kind of where my view on that.
Pivot is a big word for me, and so is resilience and adaptability. And
Yes.
what I try to get with myself and everybody around me, especially with my clients, is you have to sometimes just stop and go a different direction. I mean, you just or step a step back or whatever. And then when it comes to being resilient, and this comes up a lot, they'll say, "Well, I just keep getting up. I just keep getting back up." I'm like, "Well, get up and move to the left, or get up and
Yeah.
move to the right, or get up and jump. Don't just get up and get hit in the face again." The goal is not to get knocked down again and show how many times you can get up. The goal is to say, "Damn, I don't like that, and I'm
Yeah.
going to handle it different this time and get a different result." So yeah.
So for my granddaughter's shower a couple of weeks ago, when we went up to Nebraska, they asked people to write basically a letter or life advice for 18-year-old Morgan down the road, and and I thought about it, and I that was definitely resiliency was definitely a theme in there. It's like, and it was, listen, life, you're going to get knocked down in life. Life's not fair, and don't let anybody tell you that it is. But as long as that you can, it's okay to make your mistake, learn from it, and then do something different, and just keep trying something different until you find something that works. But then, keep looking to do better. So resiliency, hopefully, hopefully I'll be around to impart that wisdom to her that's taken me, 59 years now to figure out. Hopefully I'm around to tell her that in person, and she doesn't have to wait until she's 18 to read it.
Yeah, definitely. You have shared so much today, and you continue to be a leader, even if you're not paid at that level or it's not on your sleeve anymore or whatever. But you continue to be a leader, and I personally want to thank you for all of your service to the department and the city of Dallas. And I am sure the people that you are working with and serving now, above and below you, are benefiting greatly from that. You shared a lot of personal stuff that's going to really probably get a lot of people's attention. And if we can plant a seed, if we can just plant a seed for them so that they can start their own journey or go back to the beginning of a journey and look at it differently, to give themselves some grace, to seek some assistance if they need it, then you and I will have served well today, sir. We will have served well. Um, Before I ask you the big question, I do want to ask if there's anything else that you want to say.
So one thing that I want to say, and it's always struck with me, you and I never really worked closely together. I worked with Todd at Northeast Way at the beginning of his career, but you and I didn't really have a whole lot of interactions within the department. But the one interaction that I did have, and I do remember, and has made a lasting impact on me, is the Dave Ramsey facilitation classes that you guys, the Financial Peace University for Law Enforcement First Responders, that has had a lasting impact on me since the day that I went and left that class from the academy. And I've done everything in my power up, throughout the rest of my career and even now to live that and to try and spread that to my kids, to whoever will listen. I will never I will never ever be in debt again. And the feeling of freedom and um, peace that you have knowing I don't owe anything to anybody is is undescribable. So
Nope, nobody owns you.
exactly,
Nobody owns you.
exactly. So
Thank you for that. It's funny, when I retired, and it was exactly 3 years ago yesterday that I retired. And, I wasn't the best shooter at the range, and I wasn't winning awards for car chases. I was in a lot of them and all, but, back in the day. But, I didn't have all that big, fun, sexy stuff going on. I just showed up every day and did my job. But when people tell me or share with me that they are changing their lives, that they are changing their family tree because of what the Dave Ramsey Company and Chief Brown and Chief Hale allowed us to do in our department, that is awesome. And I think one of the reasons why I was very effective standing in front of those classes all those years is because I made every single mistake that could have
absolutely,
been made.
absolutely.
Every
Well,
one of them.
well, I did it probably 3, 4 times over, but our plan was when I retired before they locked down the drop program was we're gonna use the drop money and buy a house outright and not get rid of all the mortgage payments. Well, that didn't happen, and so kind of had to pivot and move on to something else. And but things have worked out to where it's all paid for now. So I I don't have to worry about that. So
Yes.
it's good.
Thank you so much for mentioning that. And again, just to reiterate, we are probably better as individuals because of what happened with the drop. I I wouldn't have my two coaching businesses now,
Hmm.
and I would still be going to work. And I know that mentally, emotionally, and physically, it was time for me to leave at 30 years, but I
Yeah.
would have stayed for the money. I would have stayed for the money. So the big question, and Todd likes me to ask this of everybody,
Okay.
is, and this could be however you want to answer it, but what do you want to be remembered for? How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I just want to be remembered as as a guy that was there for my partners and for my teammates, and that they they could feel comfortable coming to me with a problem, and it didn't necessarily have to be a departmental problem or a call problem, or hey, I got some problems at the house, and have you dealt with something like that? And I think and to be known as the guy, he treated me good. He treated me like a human being, like a professional that I am. And you know I can't remember any times in my career, very few, that I yelled and screamed at anyone much. And I just wanted to be somebody that everyone else was able to look up to and say, hey, he knows the answers, he's handled this, he he can help us out here. So
That's a beautiful way to be remembered. That's a beautiful way. Yes.
yeah.
So I want to thank you, deeply. Thank you for what you've shared today. This will be a little bit different than a lot of the other ones. And hopefully it's going to get people thinking and get them to ask some questions, maybe answer some questions, seek some help, but also hear the hope
Yep.
and the joy in
Yeah.
your voice and in your journey. And I will have contact information in the show notes for anybody who wants to reach out or ask any questions or share their story. And I want to thank you very much. So thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for having me. This has been, even though some of the subjects were difficult, they need to be talked about, and I am at peace with talking about what happened to my family and I. And uh, life is there to be lived, and you need to be grateful for the things that you have. And I am, and I'm very happy, and it just means the world to me that I get to live in such a beautiful place with my beautiful wife, and we just enjoy our surroundings and each other. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much.
well, thank you.